OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. Time to turn our attention to matters hurling, because it's a big weekend across the hurling championship in both Leinster and Munster. The Joe McDonagh final as well. Time to say good morning to the former Limerick star Seamus Hickey. Morning, Seamus. How are things?
Morning, lads. How are you?
Thanks for hopping on. I have a list of fixtures in front of me here just to run people through them. So tomorrow Saturday we have the Joe McDonagh Cup final. It's Carlow and Offaly at Croke Park at 4:45, and then Sunday's big games, the Leinster Senior Hurling Championship around 5. All these games at 2 o'clock. So at TEG Cusack Park it's Westmeath and Antrim. The Dubs take on Galway at Croke Park at 2, and it's Wexford Kilkenny at Chadwick's Wexford Park from 2 o'clock as well. That's a big game for Wexford. And in Munster, both games at 4 o'clock on Sunday. Tip Waterford at the FBD Semple Stadium, and the T-West Gaelic Grounds at 4 o'clock is Limerick Cork. We might start in Munster, Seamus, given it's yourself with us. I've been looking at the permutations this morning, but I guess we can essentially say if Tip beat Waterford as we would expect, Tip would join Clare in a Munster final, and then it's essentially a straight shootout between Limerick and Cork to progress in the championship. So there's going to be a big faller this weekend, Seamus.
Yeah, that's how you look at it. That's how you expect it. It really would be something that would be extraordinarily unexpected for Waterford to produce something against Tipperary, considering the low ebb that they're at. Nothing's impossible, but I would expect Tip to be playing for that place with Clare in the Munster final, and Limerick and Cork really looking for progression, looking to get through to the Lee McCarthy stages. I think that's what they're playing for. It's incredibly high stakes for the last round. It's been a terrific championship so far. So the last weekend is fitting.
Is there any concern in Limerick, or is it kind of going relatively to plan? Because I know John Kiley would have seriously targeted the league campaign, and it's probably going to pay dividends if later on in the championship. But they weren't bad last weekend. It's coming in drips and drabs.
Yeah, so are people concerned? Listen, the plan is always to win every game. I think that's every team. If they're telling you anything different, well then that's not the plan. So is it? For me, there was really positive things against Tipperary. Again, to be in a winning position in the end, having lost a man in the frantic closing stages, in a scrap like that, to even have been in the position to be in a point ahead was a great place to be. Graham O'Cahey made an incredible impact when he came in. It was great to see him. From a personal perspective, great to see Graham come in and make the impact that he's made so often before. But it has come in dribs and drabs. Cathal O'Neill was a huge plus for me out of the game. I suppose his performance has been coming. I think it's been promised for a while in the league. His first couple of games in the championship were tough for him. Didn't really get into it, but really gave Ronan Maher all sorts of problems talking about one of the premier defenders in the country. So yeah, there was good and bad in the Tipperary game, but it really is the nature of the competition and the level of the competition of the teams around Limerick, I would say, more so than even themselves. It's a reflection of the standard in Munster. Going into a game against Cork, who are so unpredictable, I would say, for them to play as well as they did against Clare and not get a result is going to be tough. I think they were really like that. Dermot Ryan point was superb to kill their hopes, but they have it all to play for against Limerick, and again historically they haven't feared the green and white. So travelling up to the Gaelic grounds just won't have the same deterrent as some other counties.
Is there a fear in Limerick, Seamus? Like, Limerick were the shortest price favourites basically to win the Hurling All-Ireland in years and years and years. I think after the league final they were about 4-7, and probably an overreaction, but you take they struggled to be 14-man Waterford, which looks a terrible result now really in hindsight. Cork, as you say, are unpredictable, so there's a really realistic chance here that Limerick are going to just go out without getting out of the Munster Championship. And how would that sit in the province, in the county, in light of obviously the success that you've had? Because this should be a fear, I guess.
Yeah, so it's interesting. Like, the hurling public is a hurling public. After the Waterford game, I had several people. One of them particularly, a woman in her late 50s, come up to me and she goes, "Well, they gave us a good run. It's over now, I suppose." And I was like, lads, we had won the game. we had played poorly. But listen, to me, especially the early stages of the Munster Championship were always going to be hard because of the league final, because of the effort that they'd given to it. I am surprised at the level of performance. I thought that they would be further along, but historically in the years gone past, we'll say the last 3-4 years, they have gotten better as the year has progressed, and I'm hoping that, we'll say, if we can get a result against Cork, and I'd be, listen, I think that they will, personally, I think that they will get a result against Cork, that, it might actually be a very good route to go, to get a quarter-final, to get a route that gives them more games and more of a chance to warm the engine up. But they've hurled a lot of hurling miles collectively, and when you're in a competition that is as competitive as it is, I thought Clare have been superb, really. Outside of the three wobbler goals, I would say, that they conceded in the first half against Tipperary, they've been exceptional. They've been really, 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 really good. Hurled at a very, very high standard. So, they've really deserved their Munster final berth. And then, Tipperary are again, Liam Cahill has them raised. They've got a great blend. I think they have a really good blend of the under-20s, under-21 success that they had with Liam Cahill and the established players. Like even Bonner Maher now I thought he had a really big impact and caused a lot of problems for Limerick early in the first half. In Semple Stadium, so they've got a really, really good mix of youth and experience there, and then Cork are scoring goals for fun, going out of games for long periods, looking like they're written off, and then all of a sudden making these charges. So even against Tipperary below Cork, but even especially against Clare, I suppose what got them against Clare is that they just couldn't get their nose in front. They couldn't get that point to go ahead at any stage in the second half, and I think that was ultimately, that's how Clare really got over the line. So but Limerick, for me, they haven't tapped their potential yet. There's been a couple of really positive things, but there's been a couple of negative things too. Losing Sean Finn has been hard. Like regardless of the caliber of person coming in to replace him, it's difficult to have a player like him missing, and then see Mark Keogh and Jake Morris play as well as they did. So listen, it's the nature of the competition. Maybe a little bit of fatigue on the Limerick perspective, but they get a result against Cork and the road opens up ahead of them. Is
it mental or physical fatigue? Because the narrative around Limerick has been, look at how young the panel is. Basically, they're going to win All Ireland left, right, and centre. But as you mentioned, Seamus, compare Leinster to Munster at the moment. You can't just turn up at 90-95% and win in Munster. So if you're a little bit off.
Well, unfortunately, you can if you're playing Waterford at the moment. But if you're playing anybody else, you need to be 100%. And the margins, for there to be 2 draws and 2 1-point games after that, to me speaks to the nature of the competition. And the Munster Championship has been like that. I saw a great table during the week of Clare have the most wins in Munster. Limerick have done okay. Limerick have drawn games. Limerick have had 4 draws in the last 5 years. So it's a tricky format against good teams. So you can't show up in anything but your best. And you've got all these different playing styles that match up differently against the other counties. So Clare's style, for whatever reason, matches up better against Limerick than it does against Tipperary. Clare have always struggled with Tipperary. So it's a strange dynamic. Limerick normally do better against Tip than they do against Clare. And then again, Cork can go either way, depending on what you get. So it's a really, really tough competition, and it's I suppose it's decades and almost a century in the making.
We've a couple of comments in this morning as well. ML89 says, think someone will land the knockout blow on Limerick this year. Could be Kilkenny, Galway, Clare or Tip, but it won't be Cork. Limerick to win by 4 this weekend. And also a question, I suppose, for yourself, Seamus, will Kylie drop Hegarty again this year?
It's possible. Cathal O'Neill now is actually after making that a possibility. I really had a strong thought during the Tip game that the time for maybe trying the likes of Cian Lynch midfield, bringing Kyle Hayes up to the half-forward line just to try something different to try and jolt that line into kind of into something that resembled, the strength that we've had in the last couple of years. Because our half forward line, and I've said this repeatedly, Limerick do well on our puck outs and our ability to win the middle, particularly collisions in the middle, particularly our strength around there. And we haven't been winning the middle third in the Munster Championship. We did in the league, but that was a different competition. But yeah, it's possible. You're owed for whatever reason, and these are humans. Like, so we all have periods of form and periods where we're not as good, and it's not clicking for Garrod. And he's had to put up with an awful lot of rubbish off the field as well, in terms of rumours of deep the panel and things like that, which is, that's never helpful, and it's never good for your state of mind when you're trying to play. So it's one of those things where maybe you try something different. I do feel that the fact that Limerick have succeeded for as long as they have with more or less the same starting 15 is a potential weakness. It does help teams plan for you a bit more, and throwing something in different might actually help them from a predictability standpoint, and also trying to get the best out of Keane. So I can see Keane Lynch is doing his utmost, and I suppose the injuries have interrupted his flow, his rhythm, his momentum, and maybe a stint midfield where he's excelled before. Maybe that would actually be a good thing for him. So yeah, it's possible.
How straightforward or otherwise is it for a Limerick hurler these days to live a normal life if you live in Limerick, with all the celebrity that entails at this stage?
Well, it's all relative, really. How hard is it to be a Leinster rugby player in Dublin? It's a Dublin footballer in Dublin, a Mayo footballer in Mayo. You draw attention, and I suppose the good thing about hurling and football is, with our amateur players, is that we get to live with them. Their jobs are typically, a lot of them are in the community, a lot of them are in classrooms, in schools. So you've access to these people, so it's not that difficult. I think, to be fair, Limerick has been a fairly good place to be. Now it's the only trap that you're going to fall into is the overwhelming positivity of the last few years, and maybe a bit of uncertainty and a bit of nerves and a bit of trepidation this year with the results of the Munster Championship. I still think once you go into the unit, once you go into the dressing room, that you really do kind of diffuse a lot of that noise. I'm a big believer in it. I know that they work very hard on that, on tuning out the noise, the external, I suppose what they call BS. I'm going to say it in a PC way, or a polite way here, but that's part of the setup. Part of the setup is knowing and acknowledging the distractions that are around you, and I suppose the talk and the narratives that you can't control. So for me, it's just part and parcel. I think they've done it now for an extended period of time, so that it's part and parcel of.
The action in Leinster is fascinating as well this weekend, Seamus, to be fair, because you've got at the top end of things Galway and Kilkenny and Dublin, I suppose, depending on what happens, vying for a place in the Leinster final. Galway and Kilkenny in the driving seat for those positions, but at the bottom, Wexford's shock loss to Westmeath last week, having been 16 points I think it was up at half time.
I think
was it at one point they were 17 up, insane stuff. And they do know a draw at home to Kilkenny this weekend would be enough to save them from dropping to the Joe McDonagh, but if they were to lose Wexford, they'd require Westmeath to at least draw at home to Antrim. So look, permutations aside, Seamus, how big a blow would it be if Wexford were to drop to the Joe McDonagh Cup? Is this the sort of thing that would set them back years?
Nah, listen, it'd be a massive blow. There's no maybe, because the fall happened in Offaly before people realised what it actually was, and look how long it took them to recover, and you can see them now doing extremely well at underage level and minor hurling and at under 20s, but to see them now on the Joe McDonagh to actually try and complete their resurrection is a good thing. It's a good thing for hurling. It's a good thing for everybody involved, I would say, in Offaly. But that took them years. And what the problem is, when you're going down, it's a very divisive thing to happen. So it rarely ends with everybody banding together to to come together and pull you out of it in the beginning. In the beginning, it leads to division and all sorts of breakdown. Like, you know, even just for the Limerick perspective, in 2010, when we went down to Division 2 in the National Hurling League, it took us 5 years to get out of it, of Division 2. And the restructuring of the leagues and different things happened, but it was a very divisive thing. So, you know, it's not something that Wexford want. They don't want to be staring that in the face. And Kilkenny are not you know, they're not a compassionate group. They're not going to be thinking of Wexford. Like, they're to me, they are what they are. They're going to Wexford for a result, to close out their campaign. An impressive campaign, I would say. You know, they should have beaten Galway, I thought.
Are they contenders, Seamus?
Oh, 100%, no question. Yeah, so the comment there about someone could land a knockout blow on Limerick, I agree with that. It's very possible, and Kilkenny are as likely as anybody. Galway can do the same. I think that the Galway-Dublin game will be very revealing, because Dublin played well against Kilkenny, played very well against Kilkenny. With real, I think Micheál Donoghue, what I saw from that Dublin team was, you know, a belief that they could contend, and, you know, and then the execution of the skills. For me, it was a really, really good performance. I don't think 6 points was the margin between Dublin and Kilkenny. It was one of those things where, you know, Kilkenny hit 7 points in a row in the second half, at a time when Dublin looked like they were really coming into it, and Dublin still managed to stay at it at the end, and there was no whimper at the end. They really, really did fight to the end. So that Dublin-Galway game is another measuring stick for Dublin and their progress, but it's also for Galway. Then, you know, how serious are they? Because, you know, to me, it's a good game. The Galway-Dublin game, a very, very interesting game for both teams. Galway will want to show their mettle, and Dublin then will want to see, you know, how close are they, and was the Kilkenny game, can they repeat the performance? Because if they can repeat the performance, they'll trouble Galway. There's no question.
Yeah, it's going to be an incredible weekend of hurling. So 2 o'clock on Sunday for those Leinster matches, and 4 o'clock for the Munster games on Sunday afternoon as well, with the Joe McDonagh Cup final between Carlow and Offaly tomorrow. Seamus, brilliant stuff as always. Thanks for hopping on.
Thanks, lads.
Good stuff. Seamus Hickey there, the former Limerick hurler.